Thank you for that. Welcome, everyone. This meeting is in compliance with the Bagley-Keene Open Meetings Act. As such, there will be opportunity for public comment on all agenda items at the end of the meeting. If you're attending the meeting and wish to provide a comment, please fill out the provided comment card. Prior to making your comments, please state your name for the record and identify any group or organization that you represent. Comments will be held to a strict 3 minutes per person. We will also read comments received via email or phone call as of noon today. Thank you. Lieutenant Governor, Madam Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ms. Desai. I hereby call this meeting of the International Affairs and Trade Development Interagency Committee to order. This committee has been established by Governor Newsom pursuant to Executive Order N-0819. The purpose of today's meeting is to review and to inform the public about recent activities undertaken by our state agencies and departments with international partners and to hear public comments that can help us guide and prioritize our future international engagements. Emily, would you, Ms. Desai, please call the roll?
Director Dee Dee Myers. David Hochschild.
David Hochschild.
Karen Ross.
Josh Eddy here for Secretary Karen Ross.
Wade Crowfoot.
Here.
Mark Ghilarducci. Jared Blumenfeld. Tokes Omashakin.
Present.
Carolyn Batetta.
Here.
Samuel Asefa.
Scott Morgan for Samasefa.
Leanne Randolph. Here. Lieutenant Governor, a quorum is established.
Thank you, Emily. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. So hello, everyone, to this new location of the International Affairs and Trade Development Interagency Committee meeting. I'm particularly pleased that we are holding this meeting in person after the events of the past 2 years. This is the first time since March 9th, 2020, that we have met in person, and it's great to be all back together. Meetings like this one and the exchange of information and shared best practices are of tremendous importance. One of the many things we've learned from the pandemic is that California's international relationships are more important now than ever as we look to support economic recovery and resilience. Indeed, I think it's fair to say that those of us in state government who interact with international counterparts did not miss a beat during the pandemic. We kept at it, explored new ways to keep in touch, and kept our critical international partnerships flourishing. The goal of this committee, as always, is to bring together all the state's agencies, departments, and programs that are engaged in international activity in order to assure cohesiveness to our international strategy and to give the public an opportunity to learn what we are doing and to provide feedback and input. In that vein, we'll use this meeting to give an update to the public on our activities since last December and provide a snapshot of what our international affairs and trade priorities will be in the months ahead. I'd like to take a moment to highlight some of the activities we've engaged in with our top trade and climate change partners and underline a number of initiatives we've undertaken in recent months. In particular, I'd like to give a quick update on our participation at the Summit of the Americas in Los Angeles and at the Select USA Investment Summit in Washington, D.C. But let me start by noting some significant international engagement that has occurred over the past 6 months since we've begun to resume in-person contacts. And I'm very pleased to be able to report that Governor Newsom has participated in a number of these events, representing California to our international partners at the highest levels. I will leave it to my colleagues on this committee to go into greater detail, but I'd like to point out that in March, Governor Newsom and Japanese Ambassador to the United States, Koji Tomita, met here in Sacramento and signed a renewed Memorandum of Cooperation focusing heavily on our joint cooperation in the field of environmental and climate change matters. During our bilateral meeting with the ambassador, the governor and I reaffirmed California's strong commitment to deepen our ties with Japan and to launch a high-level trade mission to Japan next March. I was able to reiterate this message to Ambassador Tomita just last week when I met with him at his residence in Washington, D.C. on the sidelines of the Select USA Investment Summit. In April, Governor Newsom participated in a virtual Memorandum of Understanding signing ceremony with China's Minister of Ecology and Environment to bolster our existing cooperation on climate change issues. In May, the governor hosted a visit to San Francisco by Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern of New Zealand. During their bilateral meeting, the governor and prime minister witnessed the signing of a new memorandum of cooperation by Cal EPA Secretary Jared Blumenfeld and New Zealand's Consul General in Los Angeles to advance our collaboration on climate change. And just last month, during the Summit of the Americas, Governor Newsom met with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and witnessed the signing of yet another memorandum of cooperation by Secretary Blumenfeld and his Canadian counterpart to fight climate change, reduce pollution, cut back on plastic waste, advance zero-emission vehicles, protect the environment, and build climate resilience. These 4 signing ceremonies serve to further cement California's and Governor Newsom's commitment to continue to play a leading role on the global stage in the fight against climate change. All Californians should be rightfully proud of these developments and of the example our state is setting for others to follow. With regard to Mexico, at our last meeting, I mentioned a virtual engagement I had with U.S. Ambassador to Mexico, Ken Salazar, to discuss the progress being made on the Otay Mesa East border crossing facility project. In February, I traveled to San Diego, where I visited the project site and met in person with Ambassador Salazar, also with the governor of Baja California, Marina Avilar, members of Congress, the mayors of San Diego and Tijuana, Mexican government officials, several other local officials and leaders of the San Diego Association of Governments, and of course, our wonderful team from Caltrans, all of whom are diligently working to make this project a reality. We are looking forward to a groundbreaking ceremony for the Port of Entry facility in the very near future. On the international trade front, I wanted to point out that when the pandemic struck in March 2020, California was the 5th largest economy in the world, the largest consumer market in the United States, number 1 in manufacturing, number 1 in agriculture, number 1 in two-way trade, number 1 in foreign direct investment, and number 1 in access to venture capital. As we literally unplugged our economy and ordered all but essential workers to stay home, the first state in the U.S. to do so, we had no idea what our economy would look like when the pandemic ended. I am very pleased to say now that the world is reopening, all those statistics remain true. Just last week, the governor signed a $300 billion budget, which included a $97 billion surplus. These were points that I was able to make to an international audience last week at the U.S. Department of Commerce's annual Select USA Investment Summit in Washington, D.C. Our GO-Biz international team, led by Emily Desai, did a great job. Of the 51 states and territories represented at the summit, California had the largest delegation. And I assured Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo and her team that they can count on seeing us again at next year's summit in even greater numbers. While at the summit, I was also able to meet with India's ambassador to the United States and deliver remarks at a reception at his residence, underlining the strong commitment California has to deepening our already strong relationship with India. Finally, last month, the United States hosted the 9th Summit of the Americas in Los Angeles. This was only the second time since the inaugural summit in 1994 that it was held in the United States. Mayor Garcetti and his team in Los Angeles did a great job hosting the summit, showcasing LA's and California's rich cultural diversity, thriving economic prosperity, world-leading innovation, welcoming spirit of tolerance, and outward-looking openness to international trade and exchanges. Governor Newsom welcomed to California President Biden, Vice President Harris, Secretary Blinken, Special Presidential Envoy for Climate John Kerry, and a host of other high-ranking U.S. officials, along with 31 foreign delegations from across the hemisphere, which included 23 presidents and prime ministers. In addition to his meeting with Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau, the governor also met with the president of Argentina and the foreign ministers of Mexico, our closest neighbor in more ways than one, and Chile, our trans-hemispheric twin. I was honored to join Governor Newsom at the summit, where I addressed a gathering of women in technology to highlight California's leadership role in this field, attended the inaugural ceremony where I met with the president and vice president, participated in the governor's bilateral meeting with Prime Minister Trudeau, and addressed the California Leadership Luncheon along with Congresswoman Maxine Waters and San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria. And as Governor Newsom said, in California, we don't tolerate our differences, we celebrate our differences. A very inspiring message to bring to the Summit of the Americas. With that, I will now turn the microphone over to the members of the committee whose agencies participated in California's delegation to the Summit of the Americas. In addition to the governor and myself, California had a significant presence at the event, and I would like those gathered here today to share their takeaways, any interesting results or meetings or discussions, and importantly, priorities for moving these action items forward and keeping the momentum going. I'd also like to note that Secretary Lourdes Castro Ramirez of the Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency was planning to join us today, but ultimately was unable to attend. She also participated in the summit and will be sending some written comments about her observations, which we will share along with the minutes from today's meeting. So, with that, I would like to turn it over first to you, Ms. Desai, on behalf of Vice Chair Dee Dee Myers, to deliver your thoughts and notes from the Summit of the Americas. Ms. Desai.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. GO-Biz International was able to participate in a number of very important elements of Summit of the Americas. I'm going to highlight a few that are more specific to our organization. We were asked to participate in the Inter-American Development Bank's trade ministerial convening on Tuesday, June 7th in Los Angeles. The event was a half-day meeting designed to foster an exchange of views on key issues on the trade agenda and where opportunities exist for cooperation or progress that may contribute to post-pandemic economic recovery and sustainable and inclusive economic growth. Participants included the trade ministers and foreign affairs ministers from IDB borrowing member countries, as well as the US and Canada. California and additional countries were invited to take part as observers. The event focused on 3 topics that we feel are central to a modern trade agenda and where California, as a subnation, has an outsized influence: strengthening value chains and attracting investment, sustainable trade and climate change, and the digital economy. The general objective of the meeting was to foster deeper regional cooperation and public-private collaboration that allows for increased, sustainable, and resilient inter-regional trade that promotes economic growth. Along with Director Myers and Secretary Castro Ramirez, we also participated in the CEO Summit, organized by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. This was the official private sector forum of the Summit of the Americas, and discussions focused on how the public and private sectors can cooperate to improve the rule of law, enhance trade, expand economic opportunity, and help small and medium-sized businesses across the region, as well as strengthening health systems. GO-Biz also supported several bilateral meetings, as outlined by our Lieutenant Governor, including the MOU signing with the Governor and Prime Minister Trudeau. We're pleased that MOU has such a focus on expanding our trade and commercial relationship with Canada as part of our climate goals, including advancing the zero-emission vehicle market, and we look forward to further collaboration with our Canadian partners on moving that forward. Director Myers and I also met with Chile's Ministry of Economy. Much of our discussion focused on how Chile is looking to support their climate goals with private sector engagement. They wanted to understand more about certain incentives and tax credits that California deploys that they might consider adopting. As many of you know, Chile has established a fantastic framework for engagement with California under the Chile-California Council, a binational nonprofit headquartered in San Francisco that promotes mutually beneficial relationships in the exchange of information between Chile and California. So in terms of follow-up, we discussed that the Council might be an excellent avenue to further conversations on these topics. The week after Summit of the Americas, Diana Dominguez, who serves as our trade and investment representative for the Americas, and myself traveled to Mexico City for a series of meetings. It was an excellent follow-up to the summit. Our trip to Mexico City was part of GO-Biz's trade and investment promotion for the Americas. The trip provided an excellent opportunity to position GO-Biz as a leader in promoting trade throughout the region. We enjoyed a series of meetings to further our trade and investment relationship with Mexico. We held meetings at UC Alianza Mexico at Casa de California, which hosts California's Mexico Trade Desk that the Lieutenant Governor established in October of 2019. We also met with several units within the Mexico Ministry of Foreign Affairs to discuss potential areas of collaboration in expanding trade, climate resilience programs, border affairs, electrification of transport, workforce development programs, and other areas. I think it's important to point out that during our meeting with the North American team at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they started their comments by expressing their profound appreciation for Governor Newsom and the state of California's commitment to supporting and standing with immigrant families and leading the way in building inclusive and just policies. We held additional meetings with potential Mexican contractors and Hanover Fairs Mexico to explore various platforms and mechanisms for supporting California industry, including ag tech, renewable energy, and zero carbon production. While in Mexico City, Diana and I also attended the Mexico Infrastructure and Business Conference and a Climate Innovation Conference. We supported 2 California small businesses at the Infrastructure and Business Conference, which was hosted by the U.S. Embassy, and gained significant information about the latest access and developments on Mexico's infrastructure projects, and importantly, how we can position California's small businesses to be part of the supply chain and meet upcoming procurement needs. Along with the head of the Institute of Americas at UC San Diego, I attended the Climate Innovation Summit at the Monterey Institute of Technology and Higher Education. The conference focused on advancing private sector solutions to advance the climate crisis in the region. One of the highlights was hearing from 8 entrepreneurs who were pitching their products in front of the audience, which included some of the biggest venture capital firms in Latin America. View was one of those small businesses. The company was commissioned by Mexico City's Ministry of Transport and financed by its Ministry of Science, Technology, and Education. The company has developed a lightweight electric taxi that shifts forward the modern automobile and focuses on a leaner manufacturing process. The company is starting a pilot program with UNAM, Mexico's national university, and will soon begin testing in the streets of some of Mexico's low-income districts where the biggest concentration of motor taxis operates. One of the interesting things about seeing the prototype that the company had developed at the conference was that they've designed the vehicle to enable disabled passengers not only to use the vehicle themselves, but also to operate it as a stream of revenue for this population. Our Mexico City trip built on the great momentum behind Summit of the Americas, but was also preceded by some excellent engagement in the market more generally. In May, we welcomed a 40-person business delegation from Mexico to meet with 23 California small businesses in the aerospace sector. And in June, we supported 4 California trade and tourism associations to participate in the LGBTQI U.S.-Mexico Travel and Tourism Business Forum. With the support of the U.S. Commercial Service Mexico, Brand USA, the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, and the International Gay and Lesbian Travel Association, California tourism boards were able to promote inclusive economic development and travel to California. We're thrilled that the California budget includes funding for our team to conduct more cross-border economic development with Mexico, including funding to promote trade activity for small and underserved businesses in our state. I'll stop there and reserve some additional comments later in our agenda. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you very much for your report, Ms. Desai. We'll now turn to Josh Eddy on behalf of Karen Ross from the California Department of Food and Agriculture. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, thank you so much for being here. It's truly a pleasure to represent the Secretary on this committee. Secretary Ross had the opportunity to attend the Summit of the Americas on June 8th and 9th to further engage with our international colleagues on trade, climate-smart agriculture, and collaboration on shared agricultural issues, from food safety to plant and animal health. The California Department of Food and Agriculture's mission is to protect and to promote California agriculture, and the Summit of the Americas provided us with an opportunity to further international and subnational collaboration on these key issues. While at the summit, Secretary Ross was able to attend a side event associated with the Global Methane Hub, as well as the inaugural ceremony of the summit, which brought together global attendees for the launch of the conference. The Global Methane Hub side event provided the opportunity to connect with the organization and its membership. The Hub is coordinating methane mitigation funding to help enact methane reduction strategies in the energy, agriculture, and waste sectors on a global basis. California's work with CDFA's Dairy Digester Research and Development Program and the eligibility of cluster or hub and spoke projects in which we link small dairies together was of great interest to the association and furthers our opportunities for collaboration on a larger basis. Following the event, the Secretary had a meeting with Patty Ray, the Chief Partnership Officer of the Global Methane Hub, on a variety of topics, including the potential for demonstration projects on compost following the hub and spoke model, something that California is very interested in, and the work of UC Davis on seaweed as a feed supplement to reduce methane emissions, and also CDFA's Manure Recycling Innovation Project Task Force, which is looking to upcycle manure projects in kind of a circular economy, having manure products as a result. The Global Methane Hub has raised more than $320 million to support specific needs to advance methane projects and the public's understanding of manure management grants and connecting global efforts on enteric fermentation. We see the Global Methane Hub as a great partner in moving forward global collaboration in methane reduction in agriculture. In addition to the Global Methane Hub, the Secretary had 2 bilateral meetings with the Chilean Minister of Agriculture and the IICA, the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation in Agriculture. Each of these meetings and engagements provided CDFA the opportunity to further international collaboration. A major takeaway from the summit is that our international colleagues see California as an innovator and a leader in combating climate change, and they are eager to engage and partner with us on solutions. As for our next steps, CDFA will be working with the IICA, which represents the Ministers of Agriculture in the Americas. Lieutenant Governor, the former Director General, was Victor Villalobos, the current Mexican Secretary of Agriculture, so there's some great connections there, to build ties on soil health, climate-smart agriculture, food safety, and plant and animal health to engage on shared opportunities, creating stronger linkages for California and the Western states within the Americas. There is potential for an upcoming IICA meeting to be held in California in the fall of 2023, so we're encouraged to continue that dialogue with them and potentially help to host that event in the next year. We will also be working with the Chilean Ministry of Agriculture on direct engagements and webinars focusing on drought and sustainable groundwater management. As you may know, Chile is facing significant drought challenges, much like California, and with the new administration that has come into power, they are considering constitutional changes specifically on water rights. So it's of interest there to see where policy is working to address some of the water challenges that we have on a global basis. And at this point, Madam Chair, that concludes my report on the summit.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eddy. We're going to go back to you later but we're going to stay focused on the Summit of the Americas. But I know we'll all be interested in hearing some of the work that you're doing on supply chain issues and port congestion and some of the federal relief on that as well. Next, we will hear from Leanne Randolph, Chair of the Air Resources Board. Hi, Leanne.
All right, thank you. During the Summit of the Americas, the Air Resources Board hosted the annual meeting of the Transport Decarbonization Alliance, or TDA, which is an international group of countries and regions, cities, and companies all working to eliminate emissions in the transportation sector. And the unique alliance helps us continue to establish ambitious goals for transportation decarbonization, effectively advocate for policies to meet those goals in key international forums, and share experience and advice with like-minded partners. TDA's policy work thus far has focused on topics including active mobility, urban freight, and infrastructure. CARB is also working with members on assessing and quantifying the benefits of adopting rules that are aligned with our Advanced Clean Trucks regulation, which we know is critical to combating both global climate change and local air pollution. California took over the presidency of the TDA last year, and during the Summit of the Americas, we hosted TDA members from around the world, including from across the Americas, from British Columbia in the north down to Uruguay in the south. We kicked off our 3-day event with a reception at the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, where Mayor Eric Garcetti announced that the city of Los Angeles would be the newest member of the TDA, which is fitting because that is where California began its leadership in addressing vehicle emissions in the LA basin. And we were glad to show TDA members some of LA's innovative projects, such as Blue LA, which is an EV car sharing program for low-income residents that stand to benefit the most from eliminating emissions from cars. We also heard from TDA members around the world about their latest work and discussed how the TDA will use upcoming international events such as Climate Week, the Clean Energy Ministerial, and COP27 to further grow the TDA tent, raise policy ambition, and spur real action to eliminate emissions from the global transportation system. In addition, some of our TDA members made it to our truck showcase at the Fontana Raceway, which was, I have to say, the highlight of the week because we were able to drive and ride in battery electric and fuel cell trucks. I got to drive a Class 8 hydrogen truck and 2 electric delivery vans. One was a small startup, and then one was a company that is a subsidiary of GM. And it was really interesting seeing how the startup approached it versus how kind of more of a legacy automaker approached building these vehicles. So it was a great event, and it was a really good opportunity for people to see that these vehicles are here, they're available now. Folks can put in orders and move their fleets to zero emission starting now. So that was very exciting. And the policy conversations and the experiences we shared with TDA members during the summit gave us a foundation from which to continue to develop those innovative partnerships across public and private sectors. And these partnerships continue to be critical. This year, we're working to finalize our regulatory pathway to zero-emission passenger car sales by 2035 and to develop our Advanced Clean Fleets regulation, which is complementary to our Advanced Clean Trucks regulation. So we have a lot of experience and opportunities to discuss with our international partners. We know that as more jurisdictions adopt these important goals, it sets a stronger signal to car, truck, and equipment manufacturers to invest capital in the zero emissions technology we need to protect our climate and protect our communities. So we were really grateful to have the opportunity to share thoughts with our TDA partners. And we were really happy to host the international event during the Summit of the Americas so we could increase the participation and engagement of our international partners. And we look forward to engaging with them in the coming year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. All right, we're going to go more broadly to our international updates. And what I thought I would do is kind of give the order that we'll hear from everyone from, and recognize that we have some new members since the last time we were together and the last time we were together in person, which is great. And just to kind of reiterate for the new members or those who are here for the first time representing secretaries or other directors, the idea that we have behind this, these interagency meetings, is to allow for the public to have an opportunity to see the way that California as a subnational government is interacting with the world around us as the fifth largest economy in the world if we were a country. And it starts by making sure that within our various departments, are communicating with one another about what we're doing, because for quite some time there wasn't a great deal of interaction. And this allows for the opportunity for us to be able to find those places where we're working in the same way and create those linkages. These reports are as much for each other as they are for the general public. And I encourage you all to follow up with one another if you hear that work is being done that you think is something that you could work collaboratively on. So first we will hear from someone who's been here with us from the very beginning, Secretary Wade Crowfoot, and then we'll hear from Scott Morgan, then Secretary Omashakin, Carolyn Batetta, Commissioner Monahan, and then Helen Lopez. So Secretary Crowfoot, the floor
Well, thanks
is
so much,
yours.
Lieutenant Governor. Let me just echo, your explanation of the importance of this coordination. It's remarkable how interested other parts of the world, particularly countries, are to partner with California. And I know my own experience is oftentimes they reach out on a sectoral basis to this agency or that agency, and we start conversations. And it's been my experience that in the past, sometimes we don't actually connect the dots on conversations that are happening. And you and the governor have recognized that we're more powerful on the international collaboration if we're coordinated. So I think this is really helpful. And I'm always a little bit amazed with the amount of international interactions that we all have, given that we have so much work here in California, delivering on the governor's and the state legislature's priorities. All that being said, I'm really proud of my colleagues who were able to participate in the Summit of the Americas. Unfortunately, I was ill and not able to travel. My FOMO, or fear of missing out, was very high. I was on my social media a lot, but cheering from afar. So particularly the opportunity to be with the leader of New Zealand and Canada, both very ambitious nations on the topics of climate change and the environment, is pretty remarkable. Our work at the Natural Resources Agency is pretty varied in terms of the international engagement. I'll start by giving you an update on something that the governor has directed, which is more engagement between California and the rest of the world on how we protect and conserve nature. We talk about climate change, which is, of course, a planetary challenge and crisis we have. We also have a tremendous rate of extinction across our planet, where plants and animals are going extinct. We also know enrolling nature as a solution to climate change is absolutely essential to remove and capture carbon from the atmosphere and to buffer climate impacts that we're experiencing in California. So it was 2019 when the governor issued an executive order and told us to really lean forward on what we call nature-based solutions to climate change and species loss in a way that's equitable to all Californians. Part of that is to engage the rest of the world in this effort, because there is an international effort underway to conserve, believe it or not, 30% of our planet in this decade. It's called the 30 by 30 movement. And Governor Newsom actually set a target for us in California to conserve 30% of our lands and coastal waters. So much like we are in the climate space, whether it's through Chair Randolph and CARB or on transportation, Secretary Omashakin, we get to lead the world as a model on how we're conserving our nature for the benefit of people and all life that relies on nature. So we are engaged in what is this effort to develop an international agreement on biodiversity, this diversity of life on the planet. It's called the Conference of Parties, or the Convention on Biodiversity through the UN. Many of us go to the Conference of Parties on climate change. There is a parallel effort on biodiversity. That summit was taking place in China at varying points over the last couple of years, but kept on getting postponed, and will now meet in Montreal. So California, for the first time, will have an officially recognized delegation in this international negotiation, which we're really quite excited about. On a complementary front, we are working to breathe life into the MOU with China that you mentioned, with the sister agency in China, and really identifying where are opportunities to partner. Interestingly, as deep as the collaborations are on all things related to technology and climate change, China's actually interested in partnering with us on the conservation and preservation of nature, and it's actually doing some pretty interesting things. So we're working on developing partnerships there, which is really exciting. We will be part of the team that, of course, is present, hopefully at Climate Week, which is the United Nations efforts to bring parties together on the topic of climate change in the fall in New York City, in advance of the next grand international convening on climate change in Egypt, the Conference of Parties in November, which we hope to play a supporting role in as well. And then a lot of bilateral efforts underway, or more specific efforts. Department of Fish and Wildlife is leading quite an interesting international strategy session on reducing animal trafficking across the world in San Diego next month, I believe. And some of our employees are actually in Europe this summer, specifically in France and Belgium, to talk about their efforts on nature-based solutions and to learn from each other as well. So those are some of the highlights from our agency, and just glad to participate in this grand effort. And I'll lastly say, these are challenging times. I spent a lot of my time on drought and wildfire and extreme heat, and it does feel like in California we're on the front lines of climate change, but it's so encouraging and helps me be optimistic of all the work that we're doing, and not only in California, but working to broadcast it around the world. So appreciate your leadership, helping highlight the work underway.
Thank you so much. And to your point, the governor's and the legislators' allocation of over $60 billion for climate resiliency and combating climate change is simply an astonishing number. It's far beyond the capacity of most nations, let alone a subnational government, to make those kinds of investments. And people around the world are aware, whether they are other governments or they are entrepreneurs, that this is where the opportunity to participate in the scaling up of climate solutions that can be transformational. This is really one of the most significant places in the world where this work is taking place, and it's largely because of that financial investment. So more to come, I'm sure. Next, we will turn to Scott Morgan on behalf of Samuel Assefa, the Director of the Governor's Office of Planning and Research.
Thank you very
Welcome,
much.
Scott.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for having me. Director Assefa does send his regrets. He has been at the Dallas airport for somewhere in the 24 to 36 hours being stuck. So I'm sure he will be well rested and super excited to get back to work when he gets home. Similar to some of the comments that we've already heard around the Summit of the Americas, we have an MOU with the European Union, and really, that MOU has highlighted how Europe and other countries are looking at California as a leader on this front. So it's an exciting time to be here in state government in California, and be have the privilege to work on some of these projects. I'm going to highlight some of the work that we're doing around a Memorandum of Understanding that we signed at COP26 in Glasgow last year. And this is a MOU between the Office of Planning and Research and the European Institute of Technology, the Knowledge Innovation Center. And it's really focused on strengthening general knowledge and sharing and collaboration between European countries and California on innovation for tracking and tackling climate change, both in California and in Europe. And to really undertake innovation projects to advance efforts directly in California in several key areas of focus that have been identified through the partners at OPR and the European Institute of Technology. Through this work, the MOU partners have developed a plan for 2022. That includes 14 projects to be undertaken this year, 8 of which have already started, 3 of which have been completed, and the remainder will start later this year. I'll highlight a couple of those moving forward, and I also have Peter Van de Ventner here to clarify if I misspeak or say anything that I'm wrong, since I got called into this fairly late in the game, and so this is all pretty new to me. So project completed so far in 2022 was a walkthrough with TNL USA, which I believe is a Dutch company, to look at a proof of concept really around instigated by a Dutch consulate through a trade mission, but lessons learned about smart, clean, equitable transportation and solutions to that, and how we can share that information and really work towards a smart, clean, equitable transportation system. So that's one project that was worked on and completed. Another one is the Synergy Agenda Research Project, and that was a European Union stakeholder visit. So a team from OPR had the privilege of traveling to the EU in May, met with 10 different stakeholders that were interviewed at the regional, national, and European Union level to really dig into the synergy agenda analysis that was executed in 2021. 15 potential projects were identified where California and the EU could collaborate. The number one focus that came out of that was really looking at EV car sharing and secondhand market for underserved communities. So how do we think about the EV market, and how do we really get EVs into underserved and disadvantaged communities, both in California and Europe? A final report has been drafted and will be shared with stakeholders as soon as that is finalized. The third project that has been finished is the International Smart City Connect Conference. That was actually held in Ohio. Presentations and discussions on smart city technologies, smart mobility solutions were shared. Acceptance of a scientific paper for release by ITS World Congress in LA that's looking to be released in September of this year. And then discussion on tested solutions and other implementation measures, really again looking at smart cities and smart mobility. So projects that we are started but are still in progress for this year. Webinar on hydrogen economy. It's later this month, July. It's going to feature discussions and case study comparisons with government and early adopters in the hydrogen industry here both from California and North Sea region of Europe. Another webinar on ZEV market development strategy for fall 2022 will feature presentations on the state of play of the ZEV market development. Includes both speakers from the European Union and California. A visit by the Regional Ministry for Mobility from Noord-Holland to California, and that's scheduled for early September. The regional minister will also join the Dutch King and Queen in San Francisco to kick off some of those events. The minister will visit Nissan, Momentum Station, UC Berkeley, UC Davis, Velos, Moss Landing, and Sacramento, and Office of Planning and Research, and is really kind of started under 2 MOU with California that the Noord-Holland region signed back in the Brown administration when Wade was still at OPR, I believe. So exciting stuff to see to continue there moving forward. We also have the Ecomotive Goes USA tour, which is also in that September timeframe. And these are European Union students that are showcasing the latest developments in EV circular economy car. They have 15 events throughout California, a total of 30 in the US on smart, clean, equitable transportation solutions in the context of a circular economy, and really looking at how do we involve European Union stakeholders in that larger discussion. Will be a kickoff event with the Dutch King and Queen near the Golden Gate Bridge for that. And that's something that Peter's been working on for several years, are these student groups coming over to California and showcasing some of their research they're doing on electric vehicles and other opportunities. So a lot of exciting stuff happened in 2022. I will leave it at that. We are looking at and have gotten interest from other groups, whether philanthropy or others that are looking to provide funding to support the MOU. So we're speaking with our OPR legal counsel on those opportunities and to really continue this work and move it forward. So happy to answer any questions or call on Peter if I can't answer those, but very happy to be here and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan, and please tell Director Acefa we hope he gets home soon.
Yes.
Just since you noted so much activity relative to the European Union, California has the second largest footprint of diplomats outside of Washington, D.C. through our consulates. Maybe New York? Okay, New York, because of all the international agencies there as well in the UN, but then California. And the European Union, because they don't do most of what we think of as traditional consular work, they don't have consulates. They don't have any consulates. They have missions, embassy missions, but they don't have consulates because they don't do passports and they don't do, again, those kind of day-to-day citizen services sorts of things. However, there is so much interest and engagement with California that they are looking at having their first of that kind of presence here in our state. So you made me think of it. There's nothing to announce yet, but stay tuned and we will keep you posted. Next, Secretary Omishakin, it's wonderful to have you here. Welcome to your first interagency committee. Congratulations on your appointment. Thank you for your service and welcome.
It feels like it's been years already, but it's only 5 months. Thank you, Madam Chair, Lieutenant Governor. Appreciate the opportunity to represent our transportation efforts at the state in this discussion. I too want to start off on a similar note to my colleague, Secretary Crowfoot, on 2 points. One, just listening to all the updates, I see definitely a lot of opportunity for us to continue to coordinate efforts. I listened to Scott. He mentioned the word ZEV a few times. And when I hear it, my ears perk up because I think that's transportation, but it's all of us that have a role in that. Chair Randolph does, Secretary Crowfoot does, CEC. So across the board, there's always an opportunity to coordinate more. And the second point before my updates, congratulations and kudos again on the Summit of the Americas, hosting that big international conference. Congratulations to you and to Governor Newsom for hosting such a remarkable event. I too had, you said FOMA? Never heard that.
FOMO, yeah.
FOMO? I've never, yeah. I too, I guess, had FOMO. I'd never used that term before. But I was thinking about you guys. I wasn't able to attend, but very much enjoyed seeing all the progress and success from the event. So as far as the updates, three main things. Number one, Lieutenant Governor, you mentioned this already, but the governor's budget. An incredible amount of money going to key policy areas in our state. You mentioned more than $60 billion going to address climate change issues. For transportation specifically, it's $47 billion. That's the most amount of money in the history of the state that is non-gas tax money that's going to be going to transportation. And the international nexus, if you will, is the fact that more than $1 billion of that $47 billion, $1.2 billion to be exact, is going to be going to address ports and supply chain challenges across the state. If you're not aware, 40% of all the goods that come into this country on containerized cargo comes in through the San Pedro ports in Long Beach and LA. So more than 40% for the entire state, and 25% of all the goods that leave America on containerized freights also leave from California. So a significant import and export responsibility that we have as a transportation community in the state. And the governor's budget no doubt helps address issues related to the challenges on that and to improve that. And moving forward, Lieutenant Governor, Madam Chair, thank you for your leadership and involvement in the Otay Mesa Port of Entry project that's being developed. As many of you are aware, in late 2021, President Biden signed the landmark Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, also known as IJA, the new funding law. And in May of 2022, Caltrans submitted a $170 million application to the U.S. DOT for the Infra Grant Program to help, again, complete that particular project. Governor Newsom followed up with a letter to U.S. DOT Secretary Buttigieg identifying Otay Mesa East as one of California's highest supply chain priorities in IDGA funding. Caltrans is also preparing to seek funding from the next cycle of the SB1 Trade Corridors Enhancement Program that will be awarded next year. Additionally, CalSTA also included Otay Mesa East in its Emerging Projects Agreement with US DOT to ease pathways into federal transportation credit programs. Earlier this year, Caltrans and SANDAG, the regional transportation agency in San Diego, submitted a letter of intent to US DOT seeking federal TIFIA loan support. To support its TIFIA application, Caltrans and SANDAG have begun the indicative ratings process with the three major credit rating agencies, Moody, Fitch, and Standard & Poor's. SANDAG is also finalizing its revenue sharing agreement with Mexico for facility tolls that will be collected on the U.S. side of the border. From a construction standpoint, all major roadway construction on the U.S. side of the border has been completed. And this August, Caltrans is planning to break ground on the border crossing facility site in conjunction, again, with our partners in Mexico and SANDAG. The governor's office is also supporting Caltrans and SANDAG in negotiating with the GSA, General Service Administration, and Customs and Border Protection Agency for conveyance equipment and staffing. These discussions are critical to ensure the timely start of SANDAG's design-build procurement process to construct the border crossing facility. And one or two additional items, Lieutenant Governor. In addition to Otay Mesa East, I'm in the process of confirming a meeting with a delegation from the state of Baja California with Baja Secretary of Economy and Innovation, Kurt Hondo Morales, to discuss port development and rail extension projects. Baja has also been in ongoing discussions with both the Port of San Diego and Caltrans to explore border mobility options, including ferry service between the ports of San Diego, Ensenada, and the development of bicycle facilities, bicycle and pedestrian facilities on both sides of the border. And finally, Madam Chair, as you know, the ITS, Intelligent Transportation Society World Congress, is having their international conference this September in Los Angeles. And we're hopeful that Baja Governor Avila Olameda will be able to join the governor's roundtable at the event. And we're hoping that you will be in attendance as well to welcome many of the international delegates that will be attending the conference. So lots going on in the transportation space. I just want to thank you again, Madam Lieutenant Governor, for all your leadership and support.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. It will be a great day when shovels of dirt turn on the other side of the border of that Otay Mesa 2 project. And next we will turn to Chief Executive Officer of Visit California, Carolyn. It's wonderful to see you again. You have had perhaps the most, among the most harrowing of COVIDs when suddenly there was no more tourism to California, but here you are, and we look forward to your report.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor. I guess on that note, for some that are new to the committee, this pandemic was actually 11 times the size of the impact to the travel industry than 9/11. The unemployment rate was twice that of the Great Depression even. So you're right for underscoring that. But I think I'm coming with some good news finally. And just as a point of perspective, international travelers spent prior to the pandemic about $28 billion in the state. So healthy economic impact for us, for sure. And finally, we're able to turn to bring those visitors back this year. I will say we are still about 31% below spending of pre-pandemic numbers, but we actually grew about 40% plus this year, substantially. And I do credit your leadership on the stimulus package last year that helped. While that money, as you're well aware, did not go to international, it gave us discretionary funding to put in an international industry dollars. So, and why we're focused on bringing back the domestic front this year as well with additional stimulus. And that's really where we are going to put those dollars to work this year critically. We do have some celebrated successes on the national front with the Biden administration lifting the pre-departure testing requirement. That's going to significantly help international travel this year. Our next issue that's really creating challenges for us, and I'm actually serve on Secretary Raimondo's Travel and Tourism Advisory Board, so working with her on this is decreasing visa wait times. That's critical. We compete with Florida as the #1 international travel destination in the United States. We're the #1 travel economy in the United States overall. But if we can't get those visa wait times down, all of us in this room will be impacted, whether it's leisure or business travelers. It's astounding. About 43% of all international travelers come to America with a visa. So it's significant, about 35 million a year. I mean, it impacts all of us. So we have an average wait time now of about 412 days, which is astounding to think that somebody is planning whether leisure or business and has to sometimes fly 5 hours just to get an interview. So major policy challenge for us to become whole with our ability to conduct business, all of us. So with that being said, much has happened on the good news front since our last meeting in January, kicking off in March with our CEO mission to Mexico. Mexico is doing very well. It's nearly at par. Definitely the airline lift is at par. And it's our #1 market, as you know. So yes, keep building those crossings, whether it's from land or air. Very, very important. Cross-border express, very important for us as well. And even the collaboration of the now, speaking of cross-border express, the Tijuana Airport is a critical gateway, international gateway for all of us, because the San Diego Airport, for example, does not have the runway space or capacity to bring in the needed growth in order for all of us to be conducting our business. So we are dependent on infrastructure. So appreciate your leadership as well as the governor's on continuing to build the infrastructure. Followed by Canada in April, we did a mission there. Canadians actually saved about $180 billion in their earnings when they were shut down, so much pent-up demand in that country and dollars to go along with it, as well as the United Kingdom. The British in January had well over $1 billion in flight credits and travel credits because of their shutdown of over 600 days. And so we immediately started an $8 million campaign to bring them back into California this past January. I mean, we've done countless road shows, webinars. We are definitely out globally. We've reopened our 14 international offices, as well as have 7 or 8 airline partnerships in those primary and secondary markets. So very busy, fun to highlight. To your point of collaboration, I'm sure Josh will report on this in detail, but a partnership we have with CDFA and California Grown just this month. Next week, I think, when Chef Haddam is here in July, to promote the bounty of California with a very important market for all of us, and that's Dubai. So I'll put the pressure on Josh to report more details there. But with that, so much more, and I'm glad we're able to spend about $25 million in international markets this year. Obviously, Asia is lagging. They're just starting to open up, but we are focused on the UK, Mexico, and Canada. And I just want to note how proud I, too, was about the hosting of the Summit of Americas. Our North Star, our long-term policy priority is about destination stewardship. And we received an EDA grant. This year, actually, California received more than any other state as far as bringing back destination-oriented communities. And the biggest part of our spend will be going toward sustainable destinations, regional planning, and long-term planning to take advantage of the opportunity really to look at rebuilding these communities long-term in a very sustainable way. So our regional leaders are excited about this effort, appreciate the governor's leadership, as well as our partnership with GO-Biz. Not only do we collaborate internationally, but so many of us are collaborating domestically on this panel. So that is a small glow effect. You bring us together internationally, but I'm working with many of these people here. Even on the domestic front as well. So appreciate your leadership in this space.
Thank you very much. It feels like good news.
It is good news. It is. We're there.
One quick question, Madam Chair. The 400 plus days to get a visa, that sounds alarming. Is that, considering all the countries, is that a particular segment of countries? I mean, that sounds like a pretty lengthy, more than lengthy process.
It is. I mean, there are countries that are not considered primary, secondary, or tertiary, probably to any of us, like Colombia, that has 600 days. But then there are other ones that are, so that is literally just the scatter between, 3 weeks and 682 days to be exact. India's one that's important to all of us, but has a very long wait time. So it's the average versus the individual.
Sure.
And and if you look at certain countries, particularly in Europe, they're part of the visa waiver program, and so they typically wouldn't have a wait as
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. Like 8 of our top 20 countries have this visa requirement, so the other ones don't, to the Lieutenant Governor's point. But there are some really important countries like South Korea that has visas, or India, for example, so that are huge trading partners for all of us.
Wow.
Thank you. Okay, now we will turn to Commissioner Patty Monahan on behalf of David Hochschild, the chair of the California Energy Commission. Monahan.
Hi. I'm Alana Sanchez. I'm filling in for Commissioner Monahan today, who was filling in for Chair Hochschild. I'm happy to be here. I'm the International Relations Senior Advisor to the Chair, and I just found out last night, so I apologize for the confusion. It's great to get together in person with all of our international team. It's nice to see everybody. I'll make this fairly quick. I'll just do some past highlights and then a little bit on what's coming up. So Commissioner Monahan recently had the pleasure of traveling to Denmark and Norway. She was in Denmark in June alongside the International Energy Agency's Global Summit on Energy Efficiency. She is Commissioner McAllister's buddy on that topic, particularly on heavy-duty industrial decarbonization. So the Danes provided funding for the week-long study tour, which was focused on energy efficiency, and we were able to send a couple of technical staff along with her. Following her time there in Denmark, primarily in Copenhagen, she traveled to Norway to participate in the EVS 35. That's the Electric Vehicle Symposium 35. I've recently learned that it is planned to be held here in Sacramento next June. That is one of the largest electric vehicle symposiums. I think there were over 10,000 participants there typically. So we're looking forward to hosting that and more to come on that. We'd be very happy to work with all of our friends and partners, our sister agencies on that. During her visit there, she touched base with some of the leadership from the Netherlands. They had previously met here in San Francisco during a trade mission, and we're working on an MOU on vehicle battery technologies. We've shared this information with Peter Van de Venter, who's in the audience, who spends some of his time there in the Netherlands and some of his time here working for OPR. And we hope to have this ready in plenty of time for the royal visit the week of September 6th. So we'll see. We take our direction from your team and from the governor's office and GO-Biz, so however you like us to support that engagement, we're happy to do. The next thing I'll mention is Chair Hochschild, who can't be here today either, is working on an offshore wind study tour for September 2022. This will be hosted around the same week that New York Climate Week will happen, and also the same week that the Clean Energy Ministerial will be held, hosted by the DOE in Pittsburgh. The reason we're hosting it that week is it'll bump up right before the Wind Energy Hamburg conference, which again is like the largest offshore or wind energy conference in the world. So we're hoping that some of the key high-level technical experts and leadership will be able to attend that, and that runs September 27th through 30th. Any portion would be fine. We are in touch with the organizers of that event so that we can get some high-level speaking engagements. And then I know we've sent an invitation to you, Lieutenant Governor, and we would welcome you for any portion of that trip that you're able to join us for. I know you're very busy. We've also reached out to folks at Natural Resources, Deputy Secretary Nguyen, who leads on energy, and also to Vice Chair Gunda, who is at the California Energy Commission, also a couple of other folks from Ocean Protection Council, State Lands Commission, et cetera. So hoping that'll be a great opportunity, and we're aiming for about 15 people. I should mention it's not just State of California leadership, but also environmental justice, community, and tribal leadership. Some of the areas that we've identified off the Pacific Coast include areas that belong to some of the tribal communities, and so we want to make sure that they have a voice and are also educated on the potential for offshore wind, the supply chain, the manufacturing, the workforce development, et cetera. We continue to be engaged with some of our sister agencies on MOUs, particularly with Mexico City. California Environmental Protection Agency is our co-signator on that, and we're working on a virtual signing to extend the official term of that MOU. But I know that the CARB team, under the direction of Cal EPA, is working on an upcoming workshop, I think on the 15th of July, on volatile organic compounds. So we're looking at a lot of things, air quality side, but also energy efficiency for that one. We also met recently with leadership from Catalonia, Spain. I know they also met with Cal OES and Cal EPA separately, so we do have an existing MOU with them signed in 2015. I think there will probably be some interest going forward to sign under this, I want to say new administration, although not so new really, but just to have that. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to work with them. Similar to California, we share a coastline, we share a lot of similar characteristics with our climate, and they are the largest GDP in Spain, so that region. I'm excited to hear that we're going to, or potentially going to Japan in March. Chair Hochschild continues to ask me when that's going to be rescheduled, so I'll report to him on that. And then finally, I'll end that we've been in touch with the Australian Consulate in Los Angeles. We had the privilege of being there along Emily Desai. I'm always impressed when you speak. Not surprised, but I'm always very impressed. So they're looking to do another MOU with California. So we hope that we can support that as well. But I'm grateful to be here. Thank you for your leadership and all your support. A lot of our international work at the Energy Commission would not be possible, of course, without agency support, Governor's Office, GO-Biz, and Lieutenant Governor's Office support. So thank you for that.
Thank you for that terrific report. And then finally, we're going to hear from Helen Lopez from the Office of Emergency Services. It's nice to see you again in person. I think about the early days right after our last meeting when OES was just inundated with challenges. So it's good to see you, and thank you.
It's good to see you too, Madam Chair. A pleasure to be here. I'm Helen Lopez on behalf of Director Mark Gallarducci. He sends his regrets, but as you know, he's a very busy man with all these emergencies that we have. As far as the Summit of the Americas, our Cal OES State Threat Assessment Center and Law Branch led California's readiness posture by developing a state operational support plan across agencies' operational divisions to ensure facilitation and coordination of law enforcement, mutual aid, and emergency management. They participated in planning meetings with the United States Secret Service, the FBI, and the Los Angeles Police Department, as well as met with participating agencies and conducted 5 tabletop exercises to ensure security, situational awareness, and threat assessment and law enforcement collaboration and coordination across all levels of government. Busy, but ensuring the security of that event. In regards to donations, early this year, our agency coordinated with state agencies and locals to send 5 complete medical field stations and thousands of pieces of safety gear to Ukraine to provide humanitarian aid. We also continue to provide PPE to the 10 Mexican consulates, who in turn pass it on to Mexicali and Tijuana to prevent the spread of COVID. This year alone, we have received and welcomed 5 delegations in person from Ireland, France, Costa Rica, Catalonia, Australia, Germany, to share best practices and knowledge on cybersecurity, emergency management, wildfires, and statewide homeland and law enforcement programs. There's been a lot of interest now that we're open and that they have seen how California has responded to the various types of disasters that we've been experiencing here. And through the Unified Border Coordination Group, which includes coordination with the counties, NGOs, and state agencies, we continue to provide humanitarian assistance to the asylum-seeking migrant population along the California-Mexico border by providing COVID testing, vaccinations, and medical screening. And we continue to collaborate with the NGOs to assist with the migrants reaching their final destination. Currently, we're participating on planning meetings on a Tijuana River Watershed binational dam safety tabletop exercise. We are collaborating with federal government officials, state, and San Diego County and City, along with our counterparts from Baja California, Mexico. This will take place in September. As far as MOUs, we continue to work with GO-Biz Emily on the Portugal MOU. And just recently resumed communication with Yucatan, Mexico, who want to enter into an MOU. We've been working on this for a couple of years now, but just recently there's an interest. I understand they want to visit later this year, but more to share on that. And we also work with our existing MOU partners, Chile, Catalonia, Mexico, and Germany, on furthering our MOU initiatives. And just last week, Argentina requested training on wildfire prevention, mitigation, and emergency coordination. So I will be kind of working on that and reaching out to CAL FIRE on that. They want that training in October, so we need to see if that's a doable thing, since, of course, we're having our own disasters here. And Madam Chair, you also mentioned the European Union consulates. They also reached out to us. They would like to visit Cal OES in October to get an overview on our emergency management programs and what is our role during a disaster. And so also to tour our state operations center. And so that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we will circle back to the 3 members who already spoke about the Summit of Americas to complete their reports. So first, we will turn it back to you, Ms. Desai.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. I'll be brief. I think the top line is really, since our last meeting, the international team at GO-Biz has truly been firing on all cylinders, continuing our virtual trade activities, supporting small businesses at trade shows as markets begin to open up, and continuing to showcase California as a great place to do business for foreign investors. Just a few pieces on the virtual events that we've continued with your leadership and direction, Lieutenant Governor. We've done a series of virtual trade missions, and those continue to be very, very successful just since this winter and going into the spring, doing trade missions with India, with Romania, with China, with the India trade mission in particular that really built on the momentum that the Lieutenant Governor developed when she led a trade mission to India in January 2020. It really shows that opening doors, building relationships leads to those transactional opportunities for our small businesses under your leadership, Lieutenant Governor, and really focused on clean tech. We're looking to align our export promotion strategy toward the national competitive export strategy. I think this group would be interested to know that the U.S. Department of Commerce is really looking to see how we can advance and support that industry nationwide with exporting. Our trade mission to China, our virtual trade mission to China included aspects like IP protection training for our small businesses. So really looking to build in training and technical assistance for our small businesses as they think about entering global markets. As markets have opened, we've supported small businesses at trade shows where they've been able to showcase their products. The Singapore Air Show has had tremendous results for our small businesses. 5 California companies and about $700,000 so far in export sales, another $2 million anticipated from those that participated. In May, we supported 2 California companies at the Millipore Asia Trade Show, which focuses on safety and security, $600,000 in sales for just those 2 small businesses that participated. And in May, our trade representative for the Americas was able to travel to Brazil, bringing 4 California small businesses with her to help those small businesses expand across the region and access 11 South American markets. Looking ahead toward export promotion, we submitted a $2 million grant to the U.S. Small Business Administration for the State Trade Expansion Program. We've implemented this program with CDFA and other partners in the past. If we receive this funding, it would be the first time that GO-Biz oversees the program. Very exciting, and we're awaiting news on that. The grant funding from SBA would be really well complemented with funding that we received from the state budget, $2 million for GO-Biz International to expand our export training network and really, again, help those small businesses, particularly those from rural and underserved communities, tap into the benefits of exporting. With regard to foreign direct investment, we've really been working hard to continue to expand our foreign investment attraction efforts. We, in February, were selected as one of 4 states to present at the virtual Clean Tech Inbound Mission hosted by the U.S. Department of Commerce. Remarks by Chair Hochschild, by the iBank, by the New Energy Nexus, a really fantastic event where we worked directly with 150 businesses that have demonstrated interest in expanding to California. Of course, it's really good to be back in person. Lieutenant Governor, you talked about the Select USA Investment Summit in Washington, D.C., that we were so pleased to have you lead. The first time we've had an executive at your level provide that leadership for the in-person delegation. Our economic development partners, more than 20 partners from across the state joined us. And it was a fantastic experience for those partners, and we continue to hear really great results. That work really started in San Diego earlier this month. We brought in 20 Taiwanese startups on a biotech tour to look at life science opportunities in the region. We participated in the Select LA Investment Summit where Director Myers was able to speak about why international businesses continue to choose California. And then, of course, that culminated in the Select USA event in Washington, D.C. At the event in Washington, D.C., I also wanted to highlight that we hosted a Meet California breakfast as part of the summit. More than 80 foreign companies registered and heard from Chancellor Oakley from the California Community Colleges, along with an executive from Tesla who talked about why the company sees California as key to its success. So those 80 foreign businesses were able to hear why workforce, why talent is so key as they think about entering into the California market. So looking ahead, I just want to point out 2 upcoming priorities. We've talked a little bit amongst this group about a potential trade mission to Japan in March, led by our Lieutenant Governor and by Director Myers. We're thrilled with the great momentum that we've continued to build with our Japanese partners. We hope to continue to anchor that event, which we had planned to do this past year, around World Smart Energy Week in Japan. It's the largest renewable energy trade show in Japan. We want to bring small businesses to participate and exhibit there, and it provides a really nice anchor for us to focus on the commercial opportunities for our small businesses in the Japanese market. And then the second point, just in final comments, was about Commission of the Californias, which our Lieutenant Governor discussed. Our team has been working directly with our counterparts in Baja and Baja Sur to develop a ComCal coordinating committee. We've looped in UC San Diego and the Institute of the Americas. They've brought the academic expertise and research into those conversations. We're hoping to bring the work groups together in person in September to include our counterparts from Baja California and Baja California Sur. So a lot more to come with this group and bringing in your teams as we move ComCal forward with next steps. So that concludes my remarks. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you, Ms. Desai. A lot of really great work, particularly now as things are opening back up again. All right, and we will turn it back to Josh Eddy. Josh.
Perfect. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I would like to start off by echoing kind of Secretary Crowfoot in regards to some of the key challenges that we have, unfortunately, is drought. I mean, the impact of drought on California agriculture is significant. We're looking with some of the ongoing water challenges that we have, anywhere from 500 to 750,000 acres going out of production as a result of some of the changes that we have. Just this drought alone, it's estimated to be about $1.3 billion impact to the Sacramento Valley, which is a key rice growing region for California, and rice is one of our top export commodities as well. So we do anticipate significant challenges there. International tariffs, specifically with China, continue to be a major hurdle for California agricultural exporters as well, specifically within our tree nut sector. And we all know the ongoing challenges with our port and supply chain issues. It's a puzzle that is not easy to put together again once it has fallen apart. And I know that we're working very closely with our ports, our sister agencies, with the federal government, and even the shipping lines in terms of trying to see how best to solve those challenges that exist. We're very fortunate and hopeful that the Ocean Shipping Reform Act that the President signed will help to move the process along. We know that the ports and the port workers have provided statements in terms of encouraging once negotiations move forward. So I think there's some bright signs in terms of some of the relief, and we're hopeful that we can continue action on that. Our agency remains involved just with CalSTA as well in terms of biweekly kind of engagements with the Port of Oakland and also with LA and Long Beach. We also have kind of the pop-up site that was created in Oakland in February to kind of be a staging ground for agricultural exports from the port. So that work continues. We also continue to have dialogue with trucking industries and others to help make sure that we're able to move the flow of products in and out of the state of California on the agricultural front. Warehousing is a significant challenge as well in terms of the supply, lack of warehousing space is part of the congestion problem, and working to kind of resolve some of that. But on the bright side, we do have a lot of partnerships activities occurring. I think, as you mentioned, Madam Chair, in terms of partnership, we not only work in our international collaboration and our climate work and our trade work, we really work to connect governments at the national and subnational level, work to bring farmers and businesses together through our trade activities, and also bring our University of California, our California State Universities together on the research function, which has been critical. And we work very closely with all of the agencies represented here, from OES to GO-Biz to CEC, and especially Visit California, who is our partner in crime in promoting California around the globe. So we have a lot going on in terms of that space. We continue to be an active participant in our regional trade group, the Western United States Agricultural Trade Association, and host a number of trade promotional and market development activities to connect California businesses with foreign buyers. In the upcoming months, we'll be hosting opportunities in Southeast Asia and Korea, bringing those buyers here to meet with businesses and conducting promotional events in Mexico and Singapore, and working with collaboration with WSADA to lead a trade delegation to Mexico City in December. So again, creating that business opportunities for our companies. As part of CDFA's membership in WSADA, much like the STEP program that Emily mentioned, we have more than 65 companies that receive combined approximately $2.4 million in federal promotional assistance to market U.S. agricultural products in foreign markets. And this happens through trade shows, promotion, and other market development activities, and that's directly driven by those small businesses, and it's an opportunity that ourselves and GO-Biz actively promote on an annual basis to all of our companies. Later this month, Undersecretary Birdsong will join the USDA Agricultural Trade Mission to the Philippines to visit Manila and to represent kind of California agriculture. While in the Philippines, the Undersecretary will participate in market promotional events with California agricultural associations from the California Raisin Association, the Fresh Fruit Agreements, and others to kind of market and promote California agricultural commodities and connect the businesses that are participating in that trade mission with some foreign buyers as well. On the climate front, we continue to be engaged with subnational governments on climate-smart agriculture. In addition to our collaboration with Chile, which I mentioned earlier, we are planning international engagements with Portugal, South Africa, Denmark, and the Netherlands, again, focusing on a wide variety of topics on climate-smart agriculture, from drought to soil health to methane reductions. In October, Secretary Ross plans to attend and speak at the Oceania Agritech Conference in New Zealand, which is focusing on agricultural innovation in the specialty crop sector to address on-farm climate adaptation, automation, and irrigation technology. And that, I think, Madam Secretary, concludes my report, unless
All
there's
right.
questions.
Thank you. That is incredible. A lot going on. So finally, we will turn it back to Leanne Randolph for any final work that you are doing that you would like to share.
All right, thank you. So far this year, CARB has met with a dozen high-level delegations from Europe, Asia, and Latin America, and these pave the way for ongoing exchanges and partnerships on climate and air quality policies. We have been glad to represent California at several international events this year, such as the ZEV Transition Council Ministerial in Germany and the 35th Annual EV Summit in Norway, along with our partners at the Energy Commission. In addition to our leadership of the Transportation Decarbonization Alliance, which I mentioned earlier, we are also co-chairing the International Carbon Action Partnership, or ICAP, and participating in several other international climate alliances. On air quality and vehicle policies, we are continuing regular exchanges with jurisdictions around the world on those topics. We sent City of Tijuana 50 low-cost air sensors to help communities on both sides of the border track and improve air quality. We have monthly exchanges on air quality with the metropolitan area of Indore, India. And as part of our MOU with Mexico City, CARB hosted 9 technical workshops on air quality. Mexico City and parts of California share similar topography, weather patterns, and emission sources, so this exchange has been really helpful. On climate policy, we hold regular meetings on carbon pricing with Quebec, New Zealand, Mexico, Panama, Sweden, and many other through multilateral platforms. We have ongoing exchanges on clean vehicle policy. We are working with Canada on emission standards and zero emission regulations under the new MOC that was mentioned earlier. We're also discussing the development of our advanced clean fleets rule and related infrastructure needs with many of the agencies here at this table, as well as with stakeholders in Baja and Otay Mesa. The cross-border vehicle issues are really critical to have in early and detailed engagement. As more jurisdictions support and adopt zero-emission vehicle policies, it is spurring manufacturers, as I mentioned earlier, to produce the clean technology we need to zero out emissions. So throughout the rest of 2022, we are going to continue our international engagement, continue organizing and participating in Climate Week, the Clean Energy Ministerial, the ICAP meeting, the annual meeting later this year, and of course in Egypt at COP27. So I think that summarizes all of our work, and thank you again, Lieutenant Governor, for your leadership.
Thank you so much. And at every meeting, we always open up the floor to offer public comment. Maria, have we received any requests from the public?
We have not received any requests from the public, Madam Chair. Thank you.
All right. In that case, I'd like to just conclude with some closing remarks, a little bit about the international priorities going forward over the next few months. So I'd like to start with a few more words about Mexico. We've already heard about the ongoing progress being made on the Otay Mesa East border crossing facility, but I also wanted to note that throughout and in spite of the pandemic, Mexico has remained the #1 destination for California exports, and our number 2 overall trading partner. Our two-way trade in 2021 amounted to nearly $75 billion. This trade is reciprocal and interdependent. California exported over $27 billion in products to Mexico, which is over 15% of all California exports, and we imported Mexican products valued at nearly $57 billion. I am also very pleased to see resumption earlier this year of the annual California-Mexico Advocacy Day in Sacramento. As I mentioned when we last met, our revitalized Commission of the Californias provides an excellent platform for continued exchange on additional priority activities as we all continue to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. Both the governor and I are committed to continuing our commitment to advancing cross-border economic development, and we are eager to develop meaningful and mutually beneficial relationships with the governors who have recently assumed office in Baja California and Baja California Sur. Getting the Commission of the Californias back on track in the coming months is a key priority. Our relationship with Japan, as you've already heard, has also become and remains a key priority. California is the #1 state in the U.S. in terms of exports to Japan, accounting for nearly 16% of total U.S. exports. We also import more goods from Japan than any other state in the nation. Total trade between California and Japan amounted to over $34 billion in 2021. Perhaps more important is that Japan is our #1 source of foreign direct investment. In 2021, over 3,500 Japanese companies operating in California created 105,000 jobs and accounted for almost $55 billion in wages. I will say that it came up when we were at the Japanese embassy in Washington, and one of the speakers was the governor of Arkansas, and he talked about how proud Arkansas was to have about 65 Japanese companies operating in Arkansas. And compare that to 3,500 Japanese companies operating in California. Just a reminder of the scale of what the role that California plays in the U.S. economy. So as I also mentioned, has also been noted, we've been planning on leading a trade delegation. It is still very much something that we are working on, and we have rescheduled it, so you can pass this along to Jared as well, who's waiting for information about it. We've rescheduled the mission to Japan during Tokyo's annual Energy Week convention in March 2023. And we look forward to building on the momentum of the last year and making sure that that is a success. As I also mentioned, the governor signed a memorandum of cooperation with Ambassador Tomita last March, and I saw him again in Washington last week, and everyone is very much looking forward to that trip. It was also noted, by the way, during a recent virtual event, that California and Japan have over 100 sister city relationships, as well as California's sister state relationship with Osaka. So again, an incredibly important state and very much country for us, and very much on our mind over the next few months for our engagement. But of course, at the risk of leaving any of our valued international partners out, I just want to mention several other engagements. We were pleased to meet with the Australian, German, Georgian, Belgian, and Chinese consuls general just in the last few months, as well as the Belgian and Slovenian ambassadors from Washington, D.C., as well as being able to offer messages of congratulations for the national days of India, Georgia, Israel, and Italy. Last month, I welcomed in person a delegation from Nigeria, led by the Minister of the Interior. Nigeria is a state partnership program partner with California's National Guard. There are only 2 countries that California National Guard has a state partnership program with. One is Nigeria, which is why the delegation was here, and the other, of course, with Ukraine. And since we last met, of course, the unprovoked, unwarranted, and inhumane invasion of Ukraine by Russia last February has happened. We stand and will continue to stand with the people of Ukraine as they fight to protect and retain their sovereignty, their democracy, and their freedom from oppression. And finally, I would like to congratulate the Sacramento Host Committee and the California Chamber of Commerce on the relaunching of the annual Host Committee breakfast and reception in honor of the Consular Corps. I was delighted to be there and to welcome back to Sacramento last month many members of our wonderful Consular Corps from all over the state. So it is simply wonderful to be back together again and to hear about the tremendous amount of work that our agencies and departments have undertaken during the first 6 months of this year. Governor Newsom often refers to California as a nation state because although we are a subnational entity, countries around the world look to California as a leader. And it's abundantly clear from all of you that we will continue to take on that leadership role. So thank you to everyone, all the secretaries, directors, and the representatives for your participation today. And again, as we've mentioned, this is a public forum, and we look forward to our next convening to be able, again, to share the work in an interagency way with each other, as well as giving that opportunity for the public to be able to hear about the important work that all of you are doing. Thank you all, and now I will recess this meeting. Thank you. Is there anything I forgot? All right.
Yeah, very good. There was a lot.
I know. You know, when we first started doing these, Mr. Secretary.
I hope that's the case.